wrestling, Mark. Yeah, I know. What am I doing on this show, right? Well, I'm not at liberty to discuss what happened to the guy who's usually here, but suffice it to say, they needed someone to fill in, and since I'm lucky to have my show on the site more than once a season, I gladly tagged in. So, I gotta talk about a TV show on this thing, huh? Well, I guess it makes sense for me to talk about one centered around the greatest sport in the world. I just will not understand why pro wrestling doesn't get the respect from ESPN and the sports pages that it rightfully deserves, because you simply can't get this type of action and entertainment anywhere else. We just recently experienced WrestleMania 30, and while it did take me a while to get over The Undertaker actually losing, I have to admit that it was still the greatest wrestling event ever. I mean, they couldn't have had a better event if they'd scripted it! However, even I'll admit that wrestling today can't compare to what it was like in the 1980s. This was the rock and wrestling era, when the greatest of them all, Hulk Hogan, teamed up with the likes of Mr. T to face Rowdy Roddy Piper to make WrestleMania what it has become. There were also spectacular matches seen on Saturday night's main event, with some of the most colorful, outrageous athletes you'd ever see. It was like watching actual cartoon characters in the ring! So I guess it makes sense that the next step would be making a cartoon show based on those wrestlers. Because yeah, that's what we got in 1985 with Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling. Airing on CBS Saturday morning, the show appears to take us into what the wrestlers' lives were like outside of the ring. The show actually did include live-action segments featuring stars of what was known as the World Wrestling Federation of the time, like Bobby the Brain Heenan or Mean Gene Okerlund interviewing the likes of Rowdy Roddy Piper.
Would you like to see what I have created? Are you sure? Well, just turn her around here. You've got to be... Isn't that lovely?
Heavyweight champion.
No, that's how he looks when he wakes up in the morning. That's before he gets to shave all the hair off his chest. And when you come right down to it, ain't I a knockout?
And yet, despite the wrestlers appearing in those segments, they didn't actually provide the voices for the cartoons themselves. Weird. The Hulkster's cartoon counterpart was voiced by this guy named Brad Garrett, who I hear went on to do some live-action show that was pretty popular. Meanwhile, a lot of the other voices were provided by guys who I'm told have voiced a lot of cartoon characters, including James Avery and Pat Fraley, who supposedly went on to work side by side in another cartoon show that had a little more success than this one.
Another one bites the dust.
I can't figure it out, Wendy. He ain't ate nor slept in days.
Heck, Captain Lou Albano didn't even voice his cartoon character, and I heard he went on to play a character in another cartoon show. I don't know, I think it was based on some video game.
How do you expect me to get an accurate reading if you're holding that sandwich?
Sorry, I'll get rid of it.
So the cartoons are centered around Hogan and his buddies, Captain Lou, Superfly Snuka, the Junkyard Dog, Wendy Richter, and Andre the Giant. Most of the episodes are about them dealing with the shenanigans of their biggest opponents in the ring. Rowdy Roddy Piper, the Iron Sheik, Nikolai Volkov, Mr. Fuji, and the Fabulous Moolah. So, what type of animated wrestling action are we gonna see in this show? The first episode involves Piper competing with Junkyard Dog in a race to see whose car gets to be used in a movie. Yeah, because I'm sure the viewers wanted to see wrestlers taking part in the plot of a Herbie the Love Bug movie.
Did you see that? I told you, didn't I? Nobody beats Rowdy Roddy Piper at the race game. Cut! Print! That was beautiful! Beautiful? Are you crazy? You ruined my hot rod!
Even in the cartoons, Piper screws himself in the end. I will give the show credit for having a lot of the episodes focus on the lesser-known wrestlers instead of just Hogan all the time. Like the one about Andre thinking he needs to pretend he's a French pastry chef in order to please his mother. And it turns out not to matter because she's been a wrestler too!
Didn't I tell you in my postcard? I've been taking wrestling lessons at the women's club.
My kind of woman! And she could probably still do a hold better than the Bella Twins! Then there's the one where Captain Lou had to go on a crash diet to make weight for wrestling. It also seems like in every episode, Mean Gene pops out of nowhere at one point for no real reason.
Mean Gene here, and I can't believe what a whale of a problem the mighty Hulkster's in.
I don't know about you, Hulk, but this ghost business is pretty scary stuff.
Come to think of it, it does seem like Oakland only shows up whenever the Hulk's around. Is he stalking Hogan? To be honest, I get the feeling creative liberties were taken in some areas. I have always wondered what wrestlers do and live outside the ring, and I can see Hogan practically living in a gym, but the Junkyard Dog actually running a junkyard?
2 bicentennial bowling balls. I'll roll them right over.
Then again, we've had wrestlers who are IRS agents, country musicians, and even porn stars. So, yeah, maybe wrestling doesn't pay that well. Speaking of which, the little furballs are telling me we have to go to commercial, so I guess we'll continue after this. What's really weird is that not all of the episodes featured the good versus the bad wrestlers. Quite a few of them showed Hulk and his group thwarting criminals like he was some sort of crime-fighting superhero.
Thanks, Hulk. We've been looking for these jewel thieves for days.
There you are, Chief. Safe and sound.
Thanks for capturing the real crooks, Hulkster.
My pleasure, officer.
A giant guy named Hulk, known mainly for beating people up who fights crime? Yeah, like that gimmick will ever work. And then there was that one time where Captain Lou builds a time machine that sends Hulk back to Sherwood Forest where the Sheik is Prince John? I just said that, didn't I?
It's not that kind of time machine. A regular time machine. You know, a clock. See?
There was also an episode where too much of Hillbilly Jim's spices revert the wrestlers into the Little Rascals.
These are the car thieves we tried to tell you about.
Sorry we didn't believe you. If only you hadn't told me you were Hulk Hogan.
But I am Hulk Hogan.
Now don't start that again.
Hey, I feel dizzy.
Something's happening.
That might be the most insane thing I've seen involving wrestlers, and I've seen the Shockmaster and the Gobbledygooker. Even when the episodes are about the good wrestlers versus the bad wrestlers, really, that's what the two factions are called in this show, it's about a lot of stuff nowhere near the ring. I mean, these guys are going to wrestle at some point, right? Like when they both get put on a cruise ship and everybody starts getting kidnapped. They almost had a match in that one, but it was just a ruse though to try and draw out the kidnapper. Or when Bobby Heenan built a wrestler-themed amusement park that was overrun by zombies because he built it on a graveyard. And get this, even though the zombies kidnap Wendy at one point, Hulk and friends ultimately side with the zombies since Heenan pretty much stole their land to build the park.
There you go, dudes. Home sweet home.
Next thing you know, we'll have Hulk teaming up with that Captain Planet guy. There were other episodes that actually focused on the bad wrestlers themselves, though again, it's not with any wrestling action. Like the time when Piper has to learn how to control his temper and manages to do so through one of those hypnotic sleep recordings things. And then he gets snapped out of it by the playing of the rock and roll music he despises so much. Or when Nikolai and Moolah have to work in her sister's beauty salon.
There they are.
What happened to you?
Your customers gave us a big tip.
Yeah, stay out of the beauty business.
Then there's the one where they compete against each other in a baseball game.
Hulkster Ooey! He'll never hit my yo-yo ball!
Okay, I'll admit, that game does look like it was called by WWE officials.
You entered me in what?
It's just a little contest.
You could have asked me first.
But Roddy called you a wimp.
You entered me in what?
It's a muscle and weightlifting competition.
Forget it.
But Hogan called you a wimp.
He what?
Fabulous Moolah has been eliminated for cheating. Wendy was just lucky. Besides, Moolah could whomp Wendy in any sport.
Name one.
Bowling.
Baseball, weightlifting, bowling, what? No wrestling? What's next? You gonna make a show where LeBron James and Kobe Bryant compete in lawn darts? Heck, the closest I saw to an actual wrestling match was the episode Battle of the Bands that started with a match having ended after Hogan beat Piper and then goes on to some sort of music battle. For crimini's sake, this show appears more reluctant to show wrestling than TNA Impact! And I think that's pretty much what led to the show's demise. It was picked up for another season in 1986, but it was dropped from CBS lineup at the end of that year. So, Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling. Yeah, sorry, but this is boring! I admit it's pretty harmless stuff, but the stories can be really cheesy and nonsensical, and darn it, for a show that's about wrestlers and even has wrestling in the title, there just isn't enough wrestling action in it. Or any for that matter. I almost wanted to scream out, "Wrestle, wrestle," like that Spoony guy did once. It's like they were trying to make a show about great athletes and thought they had to turn them into cartoon heroes or something, which I hear was done with some other athletes later on to even less success. But at least we know WWE will never try something like this again.
This cafeteria isn't big enough for the both of us. Your soul is mine. Ouch. Seriously, not so bad.
No wonder that kid's been able to do this show for 4 years. He's never gonna run out of stuff to riff on. So the mark's out for next time, huh? Yeah, something about another tribute to that Ultimate Wrestler guy, whatever it is. So who do we bring in? PO'd Pizza Guy? Seriously doubt he's gonna adhere to our show's language standards. We're gonna have to find someone, though, at the same time trying to figure out where the heck Rowdy went. Never seen him like that before. Just stormed out after that last video and we haven't heard from him since. And not the best time for him to be storming out in the open somewhere. Even Professor Stupidiot just ducked out of town. How'd you find that out? One of your recon spies? Nah, I logged on to stupidiotvillany.com and all it said on there was gone on vacation. I got this feeling in my stomach that something really bad's come by. And if we don't find him, there could be real trouble very soon.